Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. And a friend today, good friend today. Um, this is the second in my series that I've started called Dealer as Collector, because as you know, many of the dealers that we see at vintage shows started out as collectors, still are collectors, and they generally have awesome collections. And we will see an awesome collection tonight, a legendary collection. I should note that this series, I have a third person already lined up, so I'm going to keep going with this thing. I've had a great support for it. The first video with Matt from Providence did, I think, 1,000 views at this point, which is great for a channel my size. I expect this particular video to do the same. So let me bring him on right now. My guest is Brian Roth, who you know as B Roth 6. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, Dan. Doing well. How are you?
Good, good. I have wanted to have you on as a guest. I will confess this, literally since the beginning of my channel, which is like at this point almost 2 years. But I know you've done the Greenberg thing on other channels, but this was the way that I could sort of put it in, because you do deal at shows. I bought cards from you, including a very big one at White Plains. So happy to have you, sir.
Well, I feel flattered that you made this whole, dealer to collector thing just to have me on your channel. So
it's not totally untrue. That's actually kind of true. So I guess, the way I started for most of the shows is I talk about like your collecting history, how you got into cards, how you find yourself where you are now.
Okay. Yeah. Easy answer. I started collecting cards when I was 14 in 2004. 2 years before that, my younger brother began collecting cards. He would convince our mom to buy him some like packs of 2002 tops from Walmart. And I was like, dude, these cards are worthless. They're stupid. You're wasting mom's money. But then I got my own box one year for Hanukkah, and I pulled, and I still have it, an autograph card of J.C. Romero, who was a reliever on the Twins in the Phillies. Mm-hmm. And I was hooked. And literally from then on, I didn't stop collecting. Some people, take breaks in their like early adulthood lives and find it later. Through college and through my young adult years, I never stopped.
Really?
Yeah, which I think is uncommon.
I think it is uncommon. My own personal experience, I've taken multiple breaks, but I see this kind of common thread through things. Is like there's your kid period, then there's like some point when you're an adult, and then of course when you get to be my age, you're still collecting. You're collecting again. So, and so when does it sort of evolve into like a dealer situation?
So beginning in 2018, I started buying cards with the intention to sell them. But I would put that money back into my collection. I guess we call that like sell to collect.
Yep.
And so I did that well enough, and I was able to buy some, more expensive cards that I wouldn't be able to just do with my own disposable income. And, my friends were encouraging me and saying like, oh, like you're pretty good at this. Like maybe you should try like doing this full time. And I'm like, no, I don't really know the ins and outs of the business. There's so much I don't know. And so I kind of shut it down. And fast forward to like April 2020, I lose my real job during the like early parts of the pandemic. New York City is kind of scary. And I was like unemployed. I knew I didn't want to go back to retail. My now wife, who I was just beginning to date at the time, and my family and my card friends were all very encouraging of my idea of maybe trying cards full time. And I have, and it's been nearly 5 years full time. And it's been a really fun way to make some money because I get to own some really cool stuff and meet great people and buy and sell just great cards that I like love having.
So at this point for you, it started out, which, I'm doing a very, very small shows, and doing a little bit of the make enough money to put it back into other cards. So that's kind of a common thing. I know our mutual friend Sammy does the same thing, or did the same thing. And it's not uncommon, but to move into the realm where you're now a full-time dealer, is a bit of a leap. So, did you feel like a period of uncertainty? I know you got a lot of support for it, which is excellent, but like a period of uncertainty where you weren't sure this was going to work?
Even as early as like 2 years ago, I had like a few bad buys where I spent a lot and like didn't make enough, and my cash flow really wasn't where I wanted to be. And it took me a while to kind of get it back to like the point of where I wanted it. And I was considering like, man, do I really want to like keep doing this? Like, this is really hard right now. Do I need to go get a real job again? Right. I always consider like I don't have a real job now, but I mean, I guess it is work, but I don't always consider it work. It's just me like tinkering and playing with cards. And, when I sell them, I make money. And when I buy them, I hope to sell them and make money. And so it's an interesting thing because you also have to think about like other things when you work for yourself that you wouldn't otherwise, like where is your health insurance coming from? And like, how are you doing your taxes now differently? And like, those things are like not the first thing you think about when you're like, oh, I want to buy and sell cards full time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of forces you to have like different thoughts about like how you're going to kind of conduct the rest of your life around this, career change and like ulterior
thing.
thing.
And you're working mostly on weekends, out in the field on weekends. I know there's a lot of work, I'm preparing for a show next week, reorganizing cards, all that kind of stuff that you have to do to get yourself ready for a show. And there is work because I'm obviously significantly older than you, but picking up those big boxes and putting them into a car and, rolling them in, and there's some physical labor there that I kind of underestimated. Anyway, so you do still have a PC, your personal collection, which I have had the great fortune of seeing photographs of, and which our viewers will see shortly. So your personal collection is one particular player, and I need you to tell me why it's that one particular player and how you're able to do just one guy. Because, I got 25 different personal collection, 25 different players with the personal collection.
It's probably the question I get most because I think collecting just one player is very uncommon because there's so many cards, like so many great cards out there that, collectors would love to own. And so just focusing on one player who has like, I don't know, 15 or 20 cards like total is like, well, why limit yourself? Why I collect Hank, it starts actually like back in 2004. So from like 04 to 05, I had like no collection focus. I would go to card shows or I would shop on eBay and I would just like find a card and I'm like, oh, I like that card and I would buy it. But there was like no rhyme or reason to anything. When I joined the Beckett message boards in 2005, I saw that people had focuses. They collected teams, types of cards, set builders, player collectors, and I'm like, oh, maybe I need a focus. And so I felt a special connection with Hank because, like, obviously the Jewish connection. When I played baseball, I was primarily a first baseman, and like lesser so, I did a book report on him when I was like in 7th grade, and I kind of knew a little bit about his story. So I felt it was important for my collection at the time to own a card of his. I'm like, I should own a Hank Greenberg card. So I like looked up a game used back card on eBay. I bought it. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I looked up another one. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I like that one too. And like by the 3rd time that happened, I was like, maybe I can just collect Hank stuff. And so I bought both vintage and modern cards, but my collection really transformed around this 2018 time where I began buying and selling these modern rookies to fund, additions to my collection. And I took a look at my collection, and I had help from members of the community who were were helping me like through this decision. And I actually downsized like a third of my collection of stuff that I like just didn't care about anymore. And I reinvested that into my collection, which will see like exactly how I collect. And I got inspiration from a friend of mine who collects in a very similar way that I do, to do it like this. And like, I find the most joy in building my collection, I guess, like we'll see.
Well, you know, I will see my very meager collection of Hank Greenberg cards, but part of the reason I haven't collected the two ones that I do want to get, which is the 35 Goudey, I'm sorry, the 34 Goudey and the 35, 36 Dime Stars, is because they're expensive cards. But I will eventually get them. I think he has great cards. Like, his cards are really well done. There's really not a bad one among them. So I'm feeling like that might be part of it also, that like you know, people are collectors of certain players, but certain players, like I collect all Warren Spahn, but I don't own his 1965 card because I literally hate the card. You know, it's the old man came out on the baseball field card. But so I think Greenberg presents in many ways a very attractive kind of collection too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting about and thinking about his cards is like he was, you know, pre-World War II, but then when he went to war, there were no cards being produced. And then when he came back, he just like missed a lot of like very key sets. So
Yeah.
he missed 33 Goudey, all 33 sets. So Goudey, DeLong, George C. Miller, Eclipse Import, like all of the weird ones. And then
Yep.
he also missed like there's no 41 Goudey, there's no 48 Bowman, there's no Leaf, there's no like he's like absent from like a few really big ones on both sides of his career, which I think is like really interesting too.
Yeah, his last year being 47 is really kind of a shame. Uh, I guess he's not in the tip top. He's not in the Bond Bread in 47. So,
No.
I mean, it is kind of a shame. But I mean, you mentioned the war. The other thing about him as a player, as a person, really, is that he is inspirational in many different respects. One of which is, I believe, he was the first person to actively enlist of among baseball players. Feller was the first one to actually go to war, but he had already been part of the reserves. Greenberg was not part of the reserves and actually went in and spent the whole 42, 3, 4, and most of 45 in the service. And he comes back in 45, plays the last half of the season, and then is a hero in the World Series, which is, you know, it's like a storybook kind of situation. So, and you know, he dealt with anti-Semitism. He was injured by somebody who was supposed to have done, you know, the act because of the anti-Semitism. So it's a situation where he's almost like the Jackie Robinson of Jewish players in many respects.
Absolutely. And I hear, you know, he's like often the topic of like a lot of folklore, especially in New York.
Yeah.
And I think like those stories are very interesting. Like around like the high holidays where people would be in temple, like observing the holiday. Someone outside the temple would have a radio and listen and be like, okay, how's Hank doing? And like relay the message to the people like that would love to listen to the broadcast, but can't. So they like get that message, you know, the old fashioned way, just by word of mouth, and radio. So I think stories like that are really like fun and interesting and very much of the times.
So this is a baseball card channel. So let's get into the cards here. We got that's not a card, but I wanted to start off with this because you mentioned New York, and another great thing about Hank Greenberg is that he's a New Yorker. And this is a plaque. It's not a particularly nice plaque, but it is a plaque. It is attached to a building at 16 Barrow Street. I looked it up last night. Barrow Street is, interestingly enough, right around the corner from my first New York City apartment. And I used to walk by this all the time. And I was telling you off camera, I used to walk by this all the time. And I always was fascinated by it. Being a baseball card guy and a baseball player at the time when I just moved in with my wife, I wasn't collecting cards, but I had, and of course I knew who Hank was. But then years later, I think it was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we went out to dinner in that area, and I decided to take a photograph of it. And I was fully immersed in cards at that point, so I felt like this was kind of a cool thing to put at the beginning. Did you know this existed?
I did, and the unfortunate part is I've never been to 16 Barrow Street to see it. And I live in the city, and so I have no excuse other than like pure laziness, essentially.
It's if you are familiar with the Christopher Street stop on the number 1 train, there's 7th Avenue, Christopher Street, Washington Street, Sheridan Square, Barrow. They all meet kind of in this big area. And so Barrow it's literally right like half a block from that intersection. So if you were to go there, there's a lot of stuff around there, so to speak. Restaurants and bars and clubs and all kinds of stuff. So in fact, part of the reason we only lived there 2 years is because it's really noisy at night. But West 4th comes in there too. But yeah, so I went back and took this photograph, and so that's Hank Greenberg. He was a New Yorker. There's also Greenberg stuff up in I think it's in the Bronx. I'm not sure what his connection was to the Bronx.
I think he was born in the Bronx.
Okay.
I think then he eventually moved to this apartment sometime later in life. But he is born. Well, the card I have in front of me says born in New York City, but I do think that he was born in the Bronx.
Okay. Because I was up in the Bronx at a baseball field, and there was like a plaque for Greenberg. I should have taken a photograph. This is back when my kids were playing, like 10 years ago. So this is my personal collection. As I said, a meager one. The 39 I bought at the Atlantic City National and overpaid for it because prices were very high back then. In the middle is that really gorgeous 1940 play ball that I bought from a friend on Facebook, and it looks like a 6 from the front, but of course the back is why it's a 2. And then I, for a very cheap price, got the one on the right. I definitely need to upgrade. Not only is it beat up and creased, but there's also a crack in the slab. So, but I didn't pay very much for it. So, and then this item, which I got, I don't know, a couple of years ago, which is an autograph. Somebody cut out a picture from a magazine, and there's writing on the back. And that's Kennesaw Mountain Landis with Greenberg, and Hank signed it, and it's authenticated in slab by Beckett. I sent you a photograph of this when I was considering buying it, and you gave me some good advice, and I purchased it for not very much money. So that's my Hank Greenberg collection.
A great selection of cards.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like I said, I'd like to get the 34 and the 35, or I don't know, the Diamond Stars is different years, but and we'll get into that. But again, they are pricey, so especially now. But I will eventually. I'm going to do an episode about holes in my collection, and the 34 Greenberg is one of them.
So when you're ready to, sorry, Dan, when you're ready to buy them, don't hesitate in sharing it with me, and I'll certainly give my 2 cents, whether solicited or not.
Well, I do appreciate that because you did help me out with that autograph. So anyway, so speaking of 34, Goudey, terrific card, and somehow or another you have what is that, 10?
9.
9. 9. It's early in the morning, and sure, I can't count to 10 or 9. So I guess this is sort of a rainbowish kind of, not a rainbow, but like you do, like there's an A, there's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 3. Explain to me why a collector needs 9 copies of this card.
Well, we don't need 9. But we love having 9. One of them is actually signed. The one in the top left is actually signed, which is a very
Okay.
special card. So what I really enjoy doing with my collection is taking taking the same cards and like comparing them against each other, or comparing them against like several different, and like seeing the different attributes. Like some may have better color, corners, and centering. For me, like with his cards, because in the 1930s, like gum cards were so colorful, color is really important to me. So like getting borders to be as white as I can, and like the surface having like no abrasions and creases. Like no creases is a big deal for me unless they're very well hidden. Back stamps are okay. Sometimes like paper loss in the back, but never paper loss in the front. So I do have conditions about like what's tolerable for my collection. And sometimes my collection evolves over like things that I've bought previously, and then I sell those off and, you know, move the money to something else. But I just like, I also think they look great together. And having them all laid out is a really like fun exercise.
It is cool, and we'll see more of this. But yeah, having the laid out is great. Now the upper left is autographed, but it's in an SGC holder. So
Yes.
that's the period when they were doing autographs.
So this story is completely fascinating, and I've told it before, but I'll tell it here again. So I guess it was, now my memory is like kind of fading. I think it was the National in 2018 in Cleveland. And my friend Michael and I, who is also a very, very big and avid Hank Greenberg collector, we're standing in line together. We always walk the show together. It's been like a tradition of ours for like 10 years. And we were standing in line on Wednesday, and we're in front of or behind, you know, two other collectors. And, you know, they're a little eccentric and kind of kooky and stuff like that. And I come to know that, or I come to learn that, you know, they're from the Buffalo, New York area. And, you know, we're talking about like what we collect and why we're at the show, like specific reasons and stuff like that. Sorry, I need to plug in my computer. Okay, there we go. And I mentioned to him that I collect Hank Greenberg and only Hank Greenberg. He's like, no way, that's so interesting. You know, having a very like similar conversation to what we're having. He's like, you know, I think I have a signed Hank Greenberg Goudey card. And I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. Like,
I think I have.
He was an autograph collector, so he was there
Yes.
to like meet athletes and get them to sign stuff and things like that.
Right.
And you know, he's like, I think I know where it is. I'm not sure. So he took my number, and I'm like, you know, like, hope you have a great show. Like, would love to hear from you in the future. And I ran into him the next day at the show. He's like, you know, I thought about that card, and I'm like, pretty sure I know where it is. I'm going to be back in Buffalo tomorrow, which was like Friday. And I'll take a picture and send it to you. I'm like, great. I'd love to see it. And he's like, you know, it's probably in really bad condition. Like, I don't know if you'd be interested. And I'm like, his name is Rick. I'm like, Rick, just send me a picture of the card. I'd really love to just see it. So I guess it was like Saturday morning. I woke up at like 7:30, and he texted me a picture of the card, and there it was. I should have taken a better picture, but the card is like in really, really rough shape. You can see it's trimmed. The autograph is very faint and light, but it's there. And we were able to work out a deal like pretty much that day. And then when I got back, it was like a cash and trade kind of thing. He just wanted another Hank Greenberg autograph in his collection. So I sent him something from me that I thought that he would really enjoy. And that's how the card ended up in my collection, talking to a random stranger in the line waiting to go into the National.
Well, you know, everybody at the National is there for cards. So.
It was
But
unbelievable.
to find the guy who has a card that fits directly into your collection is really a neat coincidence. So these are also 34s, right? The batter up?
Yes, they were issued between 1934 to 36, so people really considered them 1934. So yes.
So I know that there are some people have 3 or 4 different shades. Um, this is like, I guess it's the pink on the right, like the blue in the middle, and then I guess it's like a sort of a sepia or something on the left, but there's actually multiple of that.
Yes. So some research had been done on Net54 to kind of figure out like which players get which colors, and it depends on the card number. So like
Right.
card number like 1 to, I'm making it up. So like 1 to 40 has maybe like red, blue, green, and something else. So Hank has this brown sepia tone up top, and then the one below that's actually black,
Right.
and then blue, and then magenta. So depending on where your card number falls in the set determines what colors were used. So these are all 4 colors that he appears.
Right.
The high numbers look similar to these, but they're actually like smaller cards and like all brown, and don't have any variance in terms of colors. But it's a really fun set. Cards are kind of hard to find in like grades higher than like a 4.
Right.
So you see like some lower grades in these exhibited, a lot of like 1s and 2s and 2.5s and things like that.
Well, there's perforation in it, so there's always going to be an issue with that. I think I have 1, maybe 2 cards from this set, and they're like 2s. One I sent it in to get graded myself, and I thought it was going to be like a 4 or 5, but I guess the perforation issue was always going to be something that they look at.
What's really
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dan. So what's really tricky about this set is that sometimes the stencil where the perforation is very close to the edge. And so if someone were to try to punch it out, they would have like kind of creased or like created damage between, or even like a tear, like a tiny tear between like where the stencil ends and the edge begins. And so the tip of the bat of Greenberg, it's very close to the edge. And so the stencil obviously is around that. And so there's a very small space between that end of the stencil and the top or the beginning of the edge. And so a lot of times what you'll see, especially when you look at them on the back, is if they were folded, you'll be able to see like that crease running across and then some damage at the top or the sides where that would have kind of began.
Yeah, I see that. And so this is the card that I think is probably going to be my next Greenberg. I actually love this card. And Diamond Stars, we were talking off camera about our mutual friend Mitchell, who has really immersed himself into the Diamond Stars. And I feel like these cards do not get the appreciation, although more now than previously than they should in the hobby, because the artistic merit of these cards is just off the charts. And this one in particular, the colors are striking, and it's a really very, very complimentary pose. So it's Hank looks fantastic in this card.
Yeah, I think aside from maybe Lefty Grove and Fox, and now maybe Mel Ott has really climbed in this set. Greenberg is like among the top subjects in this set. He also has 2 cards. One we'll see the other one coming up. Right. But this is my favorite card that he has. It, in my opinion, is the most colorful. The pose is very interesting. I love the jersey with all the pinstripes. Everything in the background is very interesting, as with many Diamond Stars cards. In the top left corner there, I have 2 signed examples that I really treasure. And it just continues to be like a favorite card of mine. So it is exhibited the most number of examples are in my collection are of this card.
Yeah, there are 4 5s in the middle.
Yeah, 4 5s and a 5.5, just for good measure.
And I noticed that, I'm an SGC guy, and I noticed that quite a number of your cards are SGC. I know you do submit to both PSA and SGC. Do you like this card better in the Tux?
I think it looks a lot better personally.
Yeah.
A lot of the cards in my collection, I a fair number. I shouldn't say a lot. A fair number I bought raw and submitted myself.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously sometimes I'll buy a card and it'll already be graded. But yeah, I took enjoyment in like getting a card, sometimes even like crossing it from PSA. Like I was like a strictly SGC guy. Now I'm more like slab agnostic when it comes to my collection. It doesn't really matter. But I would like take PSA cards and like cross into SGC because I just didn't want a PSA holder.
Yeah, I've never gotten to that. If I bought in a PSA, I'm going to keep it in PSA.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to sub to them. Although I do have a card in there right now. It's 1934 World Series. It's not a card. It's a ticket because SGC doesn't do tickets. 1934 World Series, which the Tigers were in. I believe. I mean, Greenberg is playing in 34, right? Yeah, of course he is.
Yes.
Game 2, which is not the most famous game, but it was a ticket from the 34 World Series. So,
Yeah,
and it's actually in I can't remember the name, Assembly. It's in Assembly now. So that means that it is a authentic card. I don't care I got authentic ticket. I don't care what it grades, excuse me. So I feel much better seeing that it's in Assembly. Anyway, so what's the difference between the ones we just saw and this?
So early on in the printing run, the National Chicle Gum Company produced this card. If you can look very closely at his last name on the bottom, it's misspelled Burg. And so this is the error. It's probably twice as rare as the corrected version and like twice as expensive. Well, centering for this card in general, either this or the error or the corrected error is very difficult. That PSA 4 that you see in the top row is probably as perfectly centered as you're going to ever see for this card. I think that one's like 50-50 all the way around. So I paid a premium for that. But as you can see, like they're all kind of shifted to the left a little bit, sometimes like to the left and up. But it's like, again, like such a good card. A 6 is like my, that was a card I bought maybe like 2019. I'm very happy with that. I think if that were graded maybe 5 years prior to me buying it, probably would have been a 7. But I think the centering, brings it down, but it's a really, really, really sharp card.
Yeah, the top to bottom's a little off, but you can see the corners are really like a razor sharp. So, and it is a 6 of a Diamond Stars Greenberg. So, I know. I don't know actually. I didn't check the comps because I will never own a 6. But it's not an inexpensive item. So these are the 35 Goudey. I probably should have looked closely, but there are 4 Tigers on this card.
Yes.
Is Schoolboy Rowe one of them?
He's bottom right.
Okay. And the other 2 are what, Bridges? Is Bridges one of them?
Yeah, you've got a good eye.
Yeah, no, I'm just guessing. Anyway, so this one, I guess I'm not a big fan of this set, to be honest with you, because they just took the photographs, or not the photographs, but the drawings from the 34s and made them smaller and just stuck them on the card with 4 guys in the same team. And then on the back, of course, is like you have to put them all together to get a poster, which is similar to the 72 Topps. That's the same thing. Any thoughts about this other than me bad mouthing a card?
I was actually having this conversation with someone yesterday because at White Plains, I actually found someone with a PSA 8, which I believe is a Pop 1 and none higher.
Wow.
I have never seen an 8 before. I didn't even know that it existed. This card is, equivalent to 71 Topps baseball, 71 Topps football, 62 Topps baseball, in that you breathe on the card and it damages. But the difference is that this predates any of those by like 30 or 40 years. And so to find, them in conditions like this, like when I look for 35 Goudeys, the periphery is very important to me. Like that red border is so unforgiving.
Yep.
So a bad corner will really turn your 5 into like a 3. And so that quality of the card is very important to me. It's a very colorful card. So, I think it's very undervalued though, because you can get, in some cases, like 3 Hall of Famers on some cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Yankees card has Dickey, Lazzari, and Red Ruffing on it, which I think is super cool. And they're not extremely expensive, especially like in mid grades, which are hard to find for this card. So I think there's certainly, I wouldn't say like room to grow, but a lot of value to be had in this set, because you can get, Jimmy Fox or Dizzy Dean, who don't have a lot of cards,
Right.
for like pretty reasonable prices.
There is a Pittsburgh Pirate card that has the Wayner brothers on it, which is kind of cool, and Wade Hoyt, so it's 3 Hall of Famers on that one.
Right.
And I think I do have one card in this set. It's a 5, so I knew it was a higher grade. It's Tigers, so it's got Cochran and Gehringer, I think, and maybe one other Hall of Famer, but it's a good card. So I mean, it's as much as I said I'm not crazy about it. You're right. There's a lot of good reasons. Most of which is the fact that you can get Hall of Famers at reasonable prices for a card from 1935, 90-year-old card. Okay, so these I don't know anything about.
So between like 1935 and 1937, George Burke, who was a prominent photographer, issued like kind of like perforated sheets of photo stamps of baseball players. So these are like actually real photos,
Right.
developed. You can see, especially with the one on the left, that like you can kind of like perforate them like off of a sheet. But you can actually sometimes find the full sheet, which is very cool. So this is a particularly uncommon issue. I would say rare. You don't see these. Sometimes you'll see like the others, but like this is a specific subset within his photo stamps of like the Detroit Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
This was the year, obviously in 35, they won the World Series. I think for the first time, maybe the second time. I don't remember. They're just particularly difficult to find. So I the first one I picked up was actually on the right, and the back is kind of like torn from when I think it was removed. The backs are actually adhesive, so you can glue them maybe like into paper, like into an album, and like have them arranged in a certain way. So I think when it was taken out, it like took off some of the back, and so you can kind of like see through the card, like especially it goes like kind of through his face. But that was the first time I had ever had an opportunity to buy one, and that, maybe I bought that in like 2017 or 18. And that was the first time really since beginning my collection of his that I had an opportunity to buy one of these. And so it didn't matter what condition it was. I just wanted the card.
Mm-hmm.
But they are pretty tough.
Yeah, the one on the left is actually quite nice. So you did get an upgrade there. The thing that's striking to me about this though is like what is SGC doing here?
There's another example of what they do later, but it's not exactly their fault. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they cut out the thing to match the card size, which is good. It's not PSA where they just put it in and it bounces around. But
Yeah.
This one on the right, I'm not sure what they were thinking there. But anyway, amazing piece, and really, I like I said, I've never seen one before, so of any player. So great find there. So this is the 36 Goudey, right? This is the one that has like a game on the back.
Yes. So another collector of Hank Greenberg's did some research, and he figured out that there are 7 different like game results that Greenberg is matched with on the front.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at one point he had assembled every back. That's not as important to me. I care more about like good examples
Right.
In my collection. I don't need every back to the game, but yes. 36 Goudey is like otherwise a pretty lackluster set. I think he's the best card in the set.
Yeah.
You get like a later card of Paul Wainer. You get Cochran, maybe like one other Hall of Famer. And that's like kind of it. It's like a 35 card set, and it's kind of just
and it's all pretty much portraits.
Yes.
Pretty close up portraits too. So of these 7 examples, which I see there is one autograph, which is terrific. How many different of the backs do you have among these 7?
I
Not
don't
sure.
know.
Okay.
I never took inventory of that.
Okay. But you do have a 7, which has got to be near the top of the pop count on this.
That I bought from Heritage. And I want to say probably around 2018. I want to say I probably paid like $400 for that card. I know Howard Chasser has one in his case for like $2,500. I don't think it'll sell for that, but he's trying. But yeah, that 7 is like pretty uncirculated. It's very, very fresh. You can see how white it is. Like the borders are just really clean and crisp. It's a really, really pretty card.
Let's see what we got here. All right, so these what are these? The sports stamp. I have seen these before. So one says Washington Herald, and the other says Detroit Tigers.
Yes.
They're actually 2 different cards, but similar looking.
Yeah, so these came out across multiple publications, pretty much across the country. And there's a lot of research on Net54 about these. Sometimes you'll see them underneath them. They will come with a bio. And so sometimes you'll even see the like image of the stamp along with the bio in a holder. They're on eBay. You can find them.
Right.
But the Washington Herald, these are particularly tough. Like they're literally like newspaper cutouts. So like how many people are saving these? The one on the right, the Washington Herald, is one of only like 2 or 3 that I've ever known to exist.
Wow.
So when I saw that for the first time, it was literally like a new discovery. I had not known the card to exist before. And it came with like an album full of other ones. So it's actually pasted onto paper. You can kind of see it around the border. I may have actually cut that myself, but I wanted that really, and then I sold the rest. The one on the left is actually very intricately cut. It actually looks like a stamp, but it is newspaper.
It does look like a stamp. When I say I've seen these, I haven't seen the Greenberg. I've seen other players. But yeah, I obviously haven't seen the Greenberg if you're a collector and you barely ever knew it existed. All right, so the top is what the Worldwide Gum.
Yep.
Which is a exceedingly difficult set,
Yes.
money-wise, and then the OPG. Okay, so these are all Canadians.
Yeah, I wanted to group these together because they're Canadian cards and they came out around the same time. 1936 Worldwide Gum, like you said, it's a very, very difficult set. Both really are. There are I think like 135 different cards in 36 Worldwide Gum. A lot of them are players that you've never heard of. They're like local Canadian minor leaguers or Canadian league players that like maybe got a cup of coffee in the big leagues. In this set, obviously you have DiMaggio's true rookie card, in my opinion, and a late career card of Lou Gehrig's, which are very, very tough.
Yep.
But there's a number of like really loaded Hall of Famers in this set. The one on the left is a 1.5, and it was the first one that I bought in 2016. And then the one on the right actually has a great story. It belonged to Michael, who I alluded to earlier in the show. He bought this card at the National, I think, oh boy, maybe it was still that Cleveland National. And this was his card. He upgraded to a 6 and sold me his 3. So, this card has made its way through to like really great hobby friends. So I'm really happy and thrilled to own that one.
Awesome.
The OPG, that set is just American Leaguers. You'll see the card number is A, and then it starts with like 100 and goes through like 130 something. But there's no National Leaguers in the set. So either they were planning on doing a National League set and never did, or never intended to do it at all. But it kind of mimics Batter Up. I have two that I call them topless because it's kind of like what they are.
Yeah.
But another like really difficult set, another DiMaggio, Zefeller, obviously Greenberg. I would love another full one of these in my collection to like as a representation, but they're just really hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah, my 36 Worldwide Gum is a rookie card of Bucky Walters, who's not a Hall of Famer, but could be. And I paid like close to $200 for it raw, and then graded it. I think it's a 3. I forget, 2 or 3. But, exceedingly hard to find. I think I added value to it by grading it, but honestly, I'm not selling it. It's just a terrific card. And then we got the big head.
I love this. I love this set.
Brian, I agree with you on most things, but I am not a fan.
Okay.
I know a lot of people love this set. I've watched people buy it and talked about it, and there's Feller and there's obviously Greenberg. There's DiMaggio is a big card that people love. I bought a beat up Charlie Gehringer in a lot and graded it just so that I could have one card in this set. But I don't think I'm ever going to buy another one. But you got 10 Hanks.
I do.
You got an auto. This top right's auto. Yeah, nice.
That card is. I should have taken a picture of just that card because it really deserves its own. That signature can be dated because of the way it looks like a period signature. So that was signed probably around 38 or 39, which is incredible. That card is not replaceable. But I do very much enjoy this set. It's a very difficult set. You have both low and high numbers, as you can see. Contrast to popular opinion, I actually really hate the DiMaggio card. I think he looks like very ghoulish and like kind of creepy, the way the shadows are kind of hitting his face. But we've seen 34, 35, 36, Goudey's now 38. Like you can see like their attempt to innovate and like really change what they're doing and like cater to a new crowd. Maybe not new, but like make their product a lot more interesting. I get it, right? Like it's illustrations and then like, a little photo head, and it's not, super interesting, but like, I think there's something about the illustrations that are like very like of the time, especially the one with the doodles. People I think tend to gravitate more toward those in terms of their popularity.
Yes. I
It's
know collectors who only want the scribble. So I should mention that the top 5 are the no scribble, and the bottom 5 are the scribble. So, there.
I also want to go ahead.
I said it was the same card, but it's not the same card. It's two different cards.
I also want to point out toning is a huge like pain point indicator in this card for me, and also like sometimes you will mostly find them to be diamond cut. So if you see like the one on the top left, it's authentic altered, but like look how bright and white that card is. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And then you get to the 3.5 in the bottom, and that's toned and more brown. But when you have multiple examples of the card in your collection, you can really like, this is a great example of this exercise, is like having them together and like really comparing them. Like if you were to cover up the label, which card would you prefer?
The 5. Well, it doesn't have the toning. Certainly, it's a lighter, brighter. But you're right. There is I can see a little bit of a diamond cut on that one.
Yes.
So, the toning that I find, the diamond stars seem to be a victim of that. So you probably see that in your multiple different diamond stars of both the corrected version and the error card.
Very much so.
Now, this card I love, and I actually, as we saw, own one. And you've got the run. You got the auto, and then you go from 1 to 7.5.
Yeah.
Now, let me count here. We got 7, and so we got 13.
13 here. You'll have 2 more that are shown that are a little different and more interesting. But
right. Oh, yeah,
again,
yeah.
like the same, very similar exercise, right? Like you can look even between the 6s that I have, you can see that they're not all created equal. Even the 6.5, like if you were to, and I should have taken a picture of like just the 6.5 and the 7.5 and held them side by side and covered the label, I would prefer the 6.5. Like that card to me is a better card. And you can see like the clarity of the photo in these is a big driving factor of like how the card presents. Some of them, like his face is very washed out and like there's like a blob kind of over his left shoulder where like it's just not developed enough or whatever it is. So I really gravitate to cards that look more like the 6.5. They're like very fresh, very dark, because you really get a lot of that contrast in the portrait.
And can you date the signature on the top left?
If I haven't done it before, but if I had to guess, it's probably like 60s, maybe.
Right.
In that range.
And then, so these are the samples.
Yes.
Which we'll see the back shortly. Are these? I have owned samples, not Greenberg, but other players in this set. I don't think they're particularly hard, but I guess Greenberg would be a prime player, so it might be a little more difficult.
There are samples of most players in the set, or I should say most like more well-known players in the set. I think even like Ted Williams has a sample, which is incredible.
Yes, I know somebody who owns one.
Tony, right?
No, not Tony. Matt, a Matt that you don't know.
Okay. And yeah, I think the samples are just so fun. The one on the left was the first one that I purchased. It was a Beckett 1.5. And that was like one of my first, I think that was my first card video on YouTube. So if you really go back and look, that was maybe like 2012 or 13 that I bought that card. And then I bought the one on the right like the morning after the National in like 2022. So a literal 10-year gap between buying one and buying the other. They are pretty tough. You can find them on eBay, but like of your specific player, like it may be more difficult to find.
Right. First, like I say, yes, higher, important players would be more difficult. And that's the sample, the stamp on the back. I forget the name of the player that I had. I forget his name. Anyway, so this card, I also think, in many respects, I think that the 40 play ball is a better set than 41 because the pictures are naturally black and white. And then the artistic colorization of them in 41, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so you get these amazing cards. Like I love the Dolph Camilli. I like the Fox. I have a Bob Johnson, which is the coloring is just fantastic. But then you get other ones where it's like creepy looking and kind of like just doesn't work. So anyway, so this is the 40, a terrific card, and you have 7 of them. Well, one's autographed.
I have 2 autographs. The one on the top left.
Oh, 2. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The one on the top left and the one next to it are both signed. The one that is the SGC holder is a particularly special card.
Okay.
Because it has a twin in the same heritage auction that was sold alongside a 39 that my friend Michael bought.
Nice.
But I actually added a card to this run yesterday. So if you want to solo me, or there we go.
Solo, but there you go.
That's fine.
I can solo. Yeah, let me do that. Solo layout. There you go.
There we go. So I added this card yesterday. It's timely because obviously we're having this conversation today. As I was mentioning to Dan, but I'll share for the audience. There's nothing higher than an 8 in this card, so this is about as good as I'm going to get. And it's super sharp. Finding grades higher than like a 6 for this card are very, you can, I guess, take me off solo now, are very difficult because I think like centering is a really like challenging aspect of this card. I have like tried like even the 2 5s and a half, like 5.5. So I was like, this is like no brainer 6, 5.5. Like it was my like goal dead set to get a 6. Finally I bought a 6.5, which I love. And now this 7. So yeah, happy to add another one to this little run here.
And that was a debut.
Yes.
Debuted a card.
That's right.
So these are the 41 double plays, right? Yeah, I always get them mixed up with double headers, double play, double header. The double play. This is litigation card set because they got sued by Johnny Mize and then they never made another set. And Greenberg has 2 cards in this. I actually have owned the bottom one. It was like a 2.5 or something, and it was very inexpensive. But I just can't get over the picture. I know I said in the beginning that like every one of Greenberg's cards is very complimentary to him. This one is not. I just really enjoy it. So, oh well.
I'm with you. Like this is definitely not my favorite card of his. There are others that I really prefer, and you can kind of see like in my collection, like the cards that I prefer, I have more of because I love them more. Mm-hmm. You know, so I am with you. You know, I'm with you on this set.
Oh, the top one though, the portrait is a good one. So maybe I should get that one. And so I think I'm kind of agnostic on this one. Like I said, the 41 has some real winners in it, and it has some real non-winners. So shall we say? I think Greenberg is kind of in the middle. Like I would prefer a better color for his background, or maybe multiple colors. But you know, the hitting pose is fantastic, but they've already used it. Anyway, so you do have an auto in there. That's nice.
I do.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, then you have sort of the 1, 2, 3, 4, several 4s, and then all the way up to a 7.
2 7s. Thank you. Know,
right. Okay.
Fortunately for 2 7s, the PSA example is like incredible. I can't understand why the card's not an 8. It is like as perfectly centered as you're going to get for that card. The borders are so white, the corners are sharp. It's an incredible card. Color is a very, very important aspect of this card for me too. I think what's interesting about, and you mentioned that you wish the background is different. I have been with you on that. I think how I feel about it now is it creates a lot of contrast, and he like stands out. Like his silhouette is like very prominent in the card, in the image.
Right.
I get it though. Like you have so many great colors in 41 play ball, and this one's like just a solid yellow, and they could have done better. But you know, what can you do at this point?
Yeah, you can't change it. But I mean, like I said, I'm agnostic on it. I like the card, but I'm not. It doesn't blow me away. Let's put it that way. So here are some variants. The 1-of-1 mustache and the 1-of-1 beard. I actually think he looks pretty good in the mustache.
Yeah. You got to have some fun with your collection, right? Like it can't all be like serious and mid grades and high grades and sharp corners. Like I like these cards just make me smile.
Well, we're members of the same Discord server, in a card server, and somebody posted. I think it was Mookie actually posted eBay listing of a 59 Hank Aaron with a beard on it, and the description in YouTube said folk art. I mean, if the person was doing it seriously, I'm laughing at it because it's ridiculous. But if the person was doing it as a joke, it's a very good joke. So I think you've got your folk art versions of Hank here too, which is fun.
I love them. The 41 actually was from Greg Morris, and at the same time they were auctioning a Jimmy Fox with a very similar looking mustache that I did not buy.
Well, you didn't get both. You could have got the two.
I could have gotten both, but I wasn't going to lose the Hank. I put like a mega bid on this card. I was not going to lose this card.
You could just crack out one of your own and just put a mustache on it.
It's true. You could. Someone could do that. I will not.
I was never a face painter of my cards, even when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are we looking at here?
So the ones on the left and the right.
Oh yeah, the paper. Right. I'm sorry. That's right.
The paper versions. The first, let me think, 36 cards of the 72 card play ball set. Playball did a test run of sorts, and they printed these on like literal. It is like so thin you can like hold it up to the light and see through it. And so most times when you see them, actually they're in sheets. I shouldn't say most times. You can find them in sheets, like through auction houses and things like that. People, I'm sure, like do buy them, cut them up, and grade the cards. So they're pretty tough. And the first, like I said, maybe it's not 36. I think it's 12 per sheet. So the first 24 cards. Greenberg's number 18. So, he's within that, thankfully. But
right.
Really cool, like little variation to the set. The one in the middle is a very unique card. I've not seen another one. It's actually a wrong back. Which in the next picture you'll see, which I think is super
go to that.
And there it is.
The papers actually have the full back.
Yes, they do. But you can see like the difference in the color.
Right.
Like it's so much brighter. Even the front, like as compared to the fronts of other 41s, are very, very bright. That's the cardstock of a 41 play ball in the middle, so you can kind of just compare between the two.
So the wrong back is Joe Cool, which is cool. And so how does I don't know how you would get the wrong back and have it be upside down also. It's like, I don't understand printing enough to do that.
I have seen a variety of different wrong backs from 41 play ball, and they're always like this, like kind of off kilter a little bit, and always upside down. Right. So something happened at some point to cause this calamity.
I guess they fed the sheet in, and they fed the wrong sheet in the wrong way.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case.
Well, I've talked down some cards in this run, just not the Greenberg, but the sets. So not a fan.
Yeah. You're not hurting my feelings.
I did a show on Four Collectors, and Scott, Reindeer Studios, Scott had the Larry Doby from this set, which is neither Larry Doby nor throwing with the right. It's actually a picture of a pitcher. It's a white pitcher, and it's supposed to be a Larry Doby card. Throwing with the left hand. And Doby threw with the right hand. So it's not the quality control was not sharp, but then you got an auto, so that makes it all worthwhile.
The set's kind of a disaster. I think the only interesting part about this card is that it actually mentions his wartime service on the back.
Yeah.
And something about like, and he's doing a swell job there too. Like just like even saying like a swell job about like your military service is very 1940s. So like that's a very interesting like little thing about this card.
Now this I love this set. I've got I think maybe 5 cards now from this set. Probably got into Montiel. And this is a playing days card because it's 46, 47, and he played in both of those years.
Super challenging set, as you know. Like when you say paper thin, like it doesn't like these don't even qualify for paper thin. Like they are thinner than thin you hold them up to the light, and like the play ball paper, you see right through it.
Yep.
I have had these raw, and I am like afraid to handle it because it is so delicate. So anytime I get them, I have to get them graded because I can't touch these cards.
I did have a raw ungraded example of this that I sent into SGC, and I did touch it, and I was worried that my fingers would do damage to it, but it had already been kind of damaged already. Yeah, challenging because paper thin. Also, a lot of them went into albums, but the one on the right, I mean, I don't know. I've seen grades above A's and 1s, but to get a 2 on this is actually kind of like getting a 10 on a modern card.
It's a remarkable card. I've actually seen, I guess it might have been last year at the National, there was a Greenberg 4 that was like perfectly centered, and like it was the best one I've ever seen. I don't think there's a higher grade. And I believe the card sold. I think the asking price was like $5,000, and the card sold, so I don't know what it sold for, but
Right.
The only problem with the one on the right is that it's like missing a bottom border. So at one it was miscut. But I don't care. Like the card looks great to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clean. I mean, I have Hubble, and it's got, all sorts of stuff on the front, and it cost me like $150. It wasn't even cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Cronin, for a couple of others. I know I have a couple of the 48 Braves. So the sports tint is the one on the top, right? Or what do they call it? Blue tint?
1948 blue tint.
Yeah. I know Jackie Robinson is in that set because I just saw that. And
yes.
then this is the SGC variants. And what are these, like 48, like, I forget what you call, but
these are 1950 R423. They don't actually have a name. They just have a designation. They came in like long strips of like 15. They're really small. They're like smaller than stamps. And they have a variety of different backs. And I didn't show the backs, but I think the two on the left are orange, and then maybe the one on the right is purple. Purple is pretty uncommon. I've also seen like green and like dark blue or black and red, like all different kinds of colors. And they're not easy. Like you can find an orange there. I think they're the most common, but to find like other colors that Hank especially is featured in is pretty uncommon, pretty tough.
And getting a 9 is really quite remarkable. Is that highest graded?
It might be. It was actually a PSA 9 I bought from Probstein, and the card was bouncing all around in the holder, and I was like, I can't have this. So I gave it to SGC, and they framed it like they like custom cut the frame so perfectly. Like the corners are exposed, and like it's just barely touching the edges of the tiny card. I don't know how they put the card in there.
They did a nice job with the 9. I'm not so sure they did a nice job with the other 2, but
No, they didn't, but whatever.
Okay, so this is I just did a show on this. Literally the last show on the channel before this is the 39 Goudey premiums. I can say that there are really 3. They say there's an A and a B, but some people say there's a C because the Bs have 2 different tints to it. The A's are smaller and they're more sort of reddish. The B's have 2 different tints, so this is a B. Am I wrong?
This is actually an R303A.
It is.
However, so this is an exceptionally rare card.
Okay.
As you can see, the top and the bottom border are cut.
Yeah.
And the story is with these is that in 39, the Worldwide Gum Company also issued their own premiums looking very similar to these. And the story goes that they bought the surplus of these images, these cards from Goudey, and then reissued them in Canada, in Canadian products. But the cards didn't fit in their package, so they had to trim the top and the bottom.
Oh, because let me just say this: my Lefty Gomez from this is missing the top border.
Is it
But
missing? Is it missing the bottom too?
I have to go check. But it's I've always wondered why it's missing the top border, but it's SGC put it in the holder as a B. So it might not be a B. It might be an OPC.
So it's worldwide gum.
Worldwide gum. Okay.
So the designation is V351B. And wow. Grading companies at the present day do not they don't grade these. They can't verify that the cut was done in 1939 or done. However, the interesting thing about this card, and I found this at Alex's MVP card shop in New York City, of all places. If you can see on the back, I don't know how good your French is, but mine's terrible. It says Detroit Tiger League American League, like Detroit Tiger American League, but as someone wrote it in French. So could they have been French Canadian? Could they have written it? To me, that's French.
Right.
And this card comes from Canada. So it all kind of blends together and makes a story. So I know of one other example of this card aside from this one. Wow. And when I bought it, I didn't even know it existed. I thought I was buying an A.
The one-time writing on the card on the back, actually, it's useful. So Greenberg has cards in the AB and the AB and or the B1 and B2 or whatever you want to say, A, B, and C. So he does have cards in that. But yeah, this is oh wow, I thought I researched this. I was so proud of my research.
It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. The easiest way to tell between if you have an R303A or a B is the size. A's will be a lot smaller.
Right. And is this the size of the B?
No, it's the size of an A.
It's the size of an A. Okay. All right.
You'll have to look at your Lefty Gomez.
I'm going to go. What I'm doing as soon as we stop recording. So these are the what do you call them? Exhibit 4-in-1s.
Yes.
I know I have one. I have the one with Ott and Hubble and Terry in it.
That's a great card. Similarly to 35 Goudey, I find so much value in these 4-in-1 exhibits. They were issued over the course of nearly 10 years. I think started in 29, they ended in 38. The Tigers in 38 is a very, very, very tough card. The first one I actually purchased was the one on the right with the 2 signatures, and I was over the moon with what I got. The one on the left wasn't eBay steal that I pounced on. It has a pinhole in the top, but otherwise it looks great. It's when I say it's probably one of his tougher cards out there.
So who's the autograph on the bottom right?
Charlie Gehringer.
Oh, that's Gehringer. Okay, doesn't look like it. Oh yeah,
it's small. It's small, but it's him.
You know, he's got the greatest signature of any player in baseball history.
It's true.
And then on the right is another. Wait, that's the 30. Oh, the premium. Okay.
Yeah, this is a 36 Goudey premium that's been trimmed, obviously, but this is from the Uncle Jimmy collection. And when this came to auction, I really wanted an example of his collection in my collection. And this was the only thing I could afford. And thankfully, I have it. The signature is pretty faded, but it's there. But I really wanted to own a piece of his collection. So
Wheatland did 5 Uncle Jimmy auctions, I believe.
I think that's right.
And I won cards in 2 of them, but they don't have the Uncle Jimmy on, and they were graded as PSA graded. I don't know if they were Uncle Jimmy cards because they don't say it on the flip, but they were in those auctions, which, by the way, took place in 2020, 2021. And the cards that I bought in those auctions have greatly increased in value, thankfully. But yeah, so the collection was absurd. And tons and tons of autos, a lot of Goudey autos, like 33 Goudey autos. But this one is terrific. So the great thing about the autos is that they all date way back. So when do you
Yes.
think this particular one might be from?
Well, if you can faintly see in the Goudey Premium on the right, the G, instead of going like off to the left or off to the right, like how it does with the exhibit on the left, you see how like his like last G tails off
Yep.
to the right. In the Premium, it kind of like angles back to the other side, to the beginning of a signature.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to assume that like because he got this signed around the time where he was playing, like it's a period signature.
Yeah. So it probably dates to late 30s.
Late 30s, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Here are some more like larger signed items. The one in the middle there, like that slab is just like a dinner plate. It's like a TV tray. So on the left you have 1936 National Chicago Fine Pens Premium, and then going right you then have the exhibit Salutations. In the middle is the Sports Exchange W603.
Yep. That's
And
paper
then
thin also.
It's pretty thin and very large. I think it's a pop one with PSA. And then on the right, one of my favorite cards that he has is the 1936 R312 Pastel Premium.
Right. Yeah. I actually
beautiful card.
It's right over here. R312. I just bought the Johnny Mize actually, which is his true rookie, and it's SGC has it, and they've had it for a long time.
It's such a good set.
Yeah. I also got the red roughing, but I think I'm probably going to grade and sell the roughing to finance the purchase. So are these all they're all autographed?
They are all autographed.
Wow. Amazing.
Autograph cards are a big part of my collection. And I really, now that like signed cards have like come back into vogue, people are paying attention to them more now, but I feel like I've kind of not always, but I grew an appreciation for them. And I just think they're like really unique. Like how many like unsigned Diamond Stars are there, but signed Diamond Stars, there are like fewer than 10 that are known to exist. So it's a really, really interesting way to collect.
I mean, I feel like it's a supplement. So like if I PC a guy, I want at least one auto in the collection. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a card. So, you know, you end up with a sign. I got a signed, you know, and not even necessarily a regular card, but like an exhibit or something. I think that's a good supplement to a collection. So this one, this is got to be after retirement, right?
So you'll actually be able to see on the back because it's postmarked.
Oh, it is postmarked. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So I love this postcard. I tried to get SGC to holder it, but they didn't for some odd reason. I just love the description. I love the photo. Like you can see like what they're wearing. It's so like big wide shoulder pads, big wide lapels, giant ties. Like it's just not how we dress now. And I love this postcard.
We could dress like that.
We could, yeah.
So I'm reading the front. I'm like, oh, the London Chop House. They went all the way to England, and then I come to the back and say, oh no, it's in Detroit. So one of the things I love to do with old postcards is look up the people. So I looked up Roy Lord Sr. From Joplin, Missouri.
Okay.
And he doesn't have much, but as some ancestry sites come up, he lived into the 80s, and I think he passed away at the age of like 73. But he doesn't have anything else noteworthy. What is the postmark? I can't quite make it out.
1947.
47. Okay, so it is an active. He is active.
Just at the very end of his career.
Yeah. I love the inscription. Hey, buddy, having fun.
Wish you were.
Wish you were. Like, wait, does he wish he was having fun, or does he wish he was here? Wish you were.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Roy Lohr had a little weird relationship with his friend Gio.
Yeah. Fine.
A little bit of a troll there, I think.
A little bit.
Okay. So the item on the right, I don't know anything about. The item on the left, I thought I knew what this was, but then I read the flip and it doesn't. I don't know what it is.
So there was more research done on the ones on the left, and they've been identified as 1934 Annis Furs Detroit Tigers team set.
All right.
It is an incredibly difficult regional card for Hank Greenberg. This is considered a rookie card. I think it's his, when you say best, maybe most valuable card out there.
Right.
That's not a signed rookie card. I'm fortunate to even own one. I didn't think I'd ever own one, much less having two. It is just an exceptionally rare card. I never thought that I would own it. It's much to the ire of many Greenberg collectors who wish I would sell one of them, but I could not replace it, so I can't sell it.
Well, I think you're going to have to give Ernest back his card here.
On the back's actually his old address, and I didn't take a picture of that, but I have looked it up, and the house I think is still there. I've actually seen other Annis Furs that he wrote his name on. Dan McKee actually had a couple of them that I thought about buying, but I didn't do it. But I'm such a tough set. Unique images, only the Detroit Tigers from 34. It was like a clothing company, and they put out these cards as, I guess, like promotional pieces. Sometimes you can find them with an envelope. They are very, very, very difficult.
He is not in the 1934 gold medal flower, which is a shame.
No.
I actually love those cards, and I have 3 of them now. It's Cardinals and Tigers, and the pictures are fantastic. On the right,
mm-hmm.
the Topps Rookie All-Star Team Honorary Election Committee.
So the story behind these, each year Topps has a like all-star rookie banquet where they honor rookies of the seasons past and like issue out awards. In 1964, they issued the program as a set of cards. You can actually find them like in a box. It's known that they only printed 250 sets, programs of sorts. So if you look at the very bottom, it says page 4. So like as you were going through the night and looking through the program, you have your set of cards, and this is a card. It used to be pretty tough, but I feel like they've like come about more recently. I only own this one, but it's not an easy card.
Well, if you only own one of them instead of like 12, yeah. So this is our second to last slide. These are all team cards. Anything remarkable about any of these?
Yes, all team postcards. These are all of the team postcards issued in 1934 or 35, commemorating the World Series team. They, as you can see on the bottom, they come in sometimes like different colors.
Yep.
Even like the one on the left, the pennant winners in like mostly white, that can come in like a brown. And then the one on the top that's blue can come in brown. So like there are some variations. I should have taken a better picture of the one on the far right. It's actually a real photo postcard. So like the images are so clear and crisp. It's a really, really, really incredible piece. But I think these are really cool, and you know they actually go for like good money.
Well, there's a lot of Hall of Fame power on these too. So
yes, there is.
So your Cochran and your Gehringer and Greenberg and whoever else is in the Hall of Fame, or Tiger collectors, obviously. So a lot of different collectors are going to want pieces of these.
That's right.
These. Okay, so the upper right, top right, the 4, SGC 4. What is that?
That's 1936 National Chickle Fine Pen.
Okay. And then you got the wide pens. And
Yep.
how many of these are autographed?
None.
None.
They're all facsimile signatures.
They're all
These are all 4 types, though. So
right.
starting with the top left, that's type 1. Excuse me, the SDC4 is type 1, and then moving to the right, type 2. You can see the difference is that the photo is more zoomed out, and then the signature is different.
Yeah.
And that there's a border with on the bottom, it doesn't say Litho and USA. And then moving down below the type 1 and type 2 is type 3. It's the same as type 2, just has no border. And then type 4 is like this sepia tone with a much richer black. That's very similar to type 1.
I've never seen that before either. Then the exhibit is pretty common. That's common pose, but is that a variation on that?
So the SGC 4 is the much more common variation. Some cards in this set have 2, and it's been known that like some of the salutations, as they say, like, or the poses are rarer than the other. So on the one where he's like swinging and he's like kind of looking out instead of at the camera, that's truly yours. And then where he's swinging and finishing a swing, looking at the camera or looking at us, it says very truly yours. Very truly yours is the tougher of the 2.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. The other one seems to be something that you can get relatively easily.
Yes, they're everywhere.
Yeah. Not that I probably should buy one, but that being said, that is our last slide. Really want to. I mean, we're 136, right? 126 or 126. You know, they say people complain about how long my shows are, but I feel like I'm just having a good time.
Yeah.
And you know, going through a collection of this quality and this nature, it's just remarkably fun for me. I mean, I could have gotten. You know, you have to buy more cards, Brian. Anyway, seriously though, really want to thank you for not only giving me the opportunity to sit down and talk to you about your collection, but seeing all these amazing photographs and, like I said, cards from sets that I literally never seen before, which, you know, is always an education and a thrill. So thank you very much, Brian, for coming on.
I appreciate you asking me, Dan, and it was really fun to go through the process of getting everything out, preparing what I wanted to say, photographing it, and then talking about it. And like, I love sharing my collection and talking to people about it, because, you know, you just get joy out of sharing the thing that makes you passionate. And so it brings me joy to share it with you and share it with other people.
And the other thing I wanted to thank you about was the card purchase that I made in White Plains a few weeks ago, or actually now it's a couple months ago. The Lefty Grove, the Diamond Star Lefty Grove, which is in the front of the display. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of behind my arm here, but it has front row. It's a front row card, because like I said, I've been looking for that card in that kind of quality with that kind of eye appeal for years. So to be able to get it and to get it from you and to get it at such a reasonable price and have it be a nice handoff in person was kind of a special event. So I really wanted to thank you for that also.
Enjoy it. It's a great card.
I do. So I am actually leaving shortly, going up to White Plains today and tomorrow. So I'm going to have a White Plains show probably like Tuesday or so, viewers. And then we got a couple of shows next week. The greatest artist in the hobby is going to be on my channel next week. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I got some other stuff going on. So I will not see you at Strongsville, Brian. I know. Sorry to hear that, but you know, life gets in the way sometimes. So
yeah, but I'll see you at the National, if not sooner, I'm sure. Or I'll see you next weekend.
At what's next week? Oh yeah. We're working the same local show.
Yeah, we're doing a show together.
All right. Well, maybe we'll get our tables together because
be fun.
I'm a bunch of boxes of commons and you'll be all these gigantic, wonderful cards. You'll get the $100 bills. I'll get the single-dollar bills. So,
And that's fine.
as long as it adds up.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Brian, again. And viewers, we will see you again in a couple of days.